Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So today I want to talk about um, Kanye West interview that he did on Drink Champs. I will post a link in the description box to that interview. I encourage people to check it out. And I just want to share my general thoughts about it. And I want to highlight a couple of things that he said during his interview. So first of all, it was an excellent interview. It was great, very entertaining, hilarious at certain points. Uh, it was really a candid type of interview. Kanye West was just being real honest and open when he was sharing his comments in the interview. I like how Nori conducted the interview. You know, he basically gave him a few questions. He didn't over talk him. Like sometimes you have people that do interviews, but instead of the subject of the interview being the focus, a lot of times people will make themselves the focus and talk a lot about themselves. But I like how Nori basically fell back and just gave open-ended questions that really generated a lot of highly entertaining discussion. So it was a great interview. And as I was watching the interview, and despite my disagreements with Kanye West on politics and stuff like that, I still recognize, a lot of his positive attributes. As I was listening to the brother do the interview, I just thought about how he represents what it means to be a free man in many ways. Again, despite my disagreements with him, he represents what it's like to be completely free and to express yourself and to be independent in a lot of respects, to be your own man. And that's something that's fascinating to see, like to see a black man manifest his independence and his power. Another example of that would be like a Dame Dash. Like I saw that interview that he did on the Breakfast Club, where he was just talking about the need to be independent, talking about the need to be your own boss instead of having to report to a boss. And I just think that things like that are powerful, like to see the way that they speak and express themselves. They're not afraid of anybody or anything. And that's something that's admirable. That's something that I have great respect for. It's something that I strive to have. I strive to be at that point where I can be completely free and be completely independent and completely in charge of my own destiny. And that's the way we should all strive to be. Um, Too often, we're in a situation where we got to report to somebody, where we got to be careful what we say and what we do and all that kind of stuff for fear of certain consequences. But Kanye West, he obviously, to a great degree, didn't have any fear. He was speaking from the heart, speaking honestly, telling exactly how he felt about a lot of things. And again, I disagree with him on many things. One thing that's really interesting is like the number of fellow artists that he disrespected during this interview. Shout out to Jacksonville. Thanks for tuning in. Um, so during this interview, he dissed Drake, he dissed Big Sean, he dissed Talib Kweli, Soulja Boy, John Legend, and even Common to some degree, even though he gave him compliments and stuff. He dissed Travis Scott and Just Blaze and JayZ. And I'm just going to highlight like some of the disses that he threw at them, just tell you, a little bit about them. So one thing that he was saying about Drake is basically saying that Drake does a lot of subliminal disses and all that kind of stuff. And he was basically saying that that's strategic, like he plays on a high level and all that kind of stuff. He's a professional rapper, and he, does a lot of this subliminal type disses, and he knows that a lot of the things that he says are going to trigger Kanye West, and he, explains it. He thinks that Drake is deliberately taking shots at him and all that kind of stuff. But in a lot of ways, even though he was saying that about Drake, he has a lot of respect for Drake as an artist. He kept saying throughout the interview that he likes Drake. He likes Drake as an artist and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that he said that he would battle Drake in a versus says a lot in and of itself. That he would do a one-on-one battle with Drake. That speaks volumes about the level of respect that he has for Drake. So another person he talked about, as I mentioned before, is Big Sean. And the reason why he was going at Big Sean is because Big Sean did not endorse his presidential run. As we all know, Kanye West ran for president of the United States, and Big Sean didn't support him in that run. And because of that, Kanye West is butthurt, basically, to sum it up. Kanye West held up this tombstone, like one of those Halloween tombstones that said RIP. And he said something to the effect that on his grave, it will say, Kanye West did the worst thing in his life or something by signing Big Sean. And again, like, he wasn't talking about it was a bad decision because Big Sean is not a great artist, because we all know that Big Sean is a great rap artist. That's not even a question. It's simply because he didn't support his presidential run. And I think that was a decision of integrity not to support Kanye West's run for president, because that run was a joke. And I'll get into that a little bit later. His run for president was a joke. It was a diversion. It was a way to siphon off black votes and to make it possible for Trump to be president again. That was the whole point of that. So that's one person another person that he did. Another one is Talib Kweli. He was asked during the challenge section of the interview, who would you vote for if you had to go between Common and Talib Kweli? And he basically said he would go with Common. He said that Common is 1,000 times better than Talib Kweli as a rapper. And he basically was saying that Talib Kweli is not a good rapper. And he also went as far as to say, like, who would you rather be, Kanye West or Talib Kweli? And I was just like, wow, that's a major diss. I was just like amazed that he would say something like that. Kweli, despite like the lack of, certain commercial success, like people look at album sales and stream numbers and all that kind of stuff. Many people recognize Talib Kweli as one of the greatest lyricists in the game and stuff. Like, for instance, even JayZ has a song where he talks about Talib Kweli and Common, and he talks about how they're both great lyricists in that particular song, and that's on his Black album. Talib Kweli created a masterpiece with Mos Def, that Black Star album, and Talib is a great MC, and I know that Kanye West, like, his comments about that are really disingenuous. Like, they don't really have anything to do with Talib Kweli as an artist. They're more so about him being butthurt about some statements that Talib Kweli made about Kanye West's support for Donald Trump. Talking about how Kanye West is basically not identifying with the community the way he should and all that kind of stuff. And I think that those are valid points about Kanye West. Kanye West, despite many of the positive attributes that he has as an artist, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as, somebody that's reached a certain level of success, in many ways, he's disidentified with the community. He's not identifying with the community just based on a lot of the ridiculous things that he has said. And later on, I'm going to go into one of the ridiculous things that he said in this particular interview. So he does Soulja Boy as well, talked about how Soulja Boy, did a song on the album. And I'm going to get to your comments in a second. Soulja Boy did a song on Kanye West's album, on the Donda album. And, Kanye West basically said, well, the track was whack. He was basically saying that Soulja Boy's rhymes were garbage, basically. And, and that's messed up, man. And it's like, and one of the things that's messed up, like Soulja Boy, like I saw a little clip of Soulja Boy on TikTok, and he was showing, his phone and some text messages between him and Kanye West. And he was basically saying that Kanye West didn't say that stuff to him directly. Like he didn't send him a message. In fact, he said that it was his lines were, his bars were good on that song. That's what Soulja Boy is saying. He never told Soulja Boy that his rap was garbage to his face or anything like that. And Big Sean also put out a tweet where he shows him hanging out with Kanye West, like around the time that he did this particular interview, or right before the time that he did this interview. And he was all cool with them. He didn't, express all this animosity towards him when he was in his presence. And I think that that's a valid point. Like I think it's a punk move, basically, for someone to not confront someone to their face, but instead to run to either the social media or run to talk and backbite behind them to somebody else, either in an interview or in a private conversation. I just think that that's soft. I think that that's weak. I don't think that that's something that's respectable. I think that people should say things to their face, to people's faces. And I know that Kanye West, he has done that before. Like he has said things to people's face before. Like I saw him go off on Chance the Rapper, and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, why, say all these things about people when you're not in their presence, like, away from them. I think that that's disrespectful. And it shows a level of cowardice and a lack of character and stuff. So that's one thing. And then, he also dissed Common and John Legend, basically because of their support for the Democratic Party. He dissed Travis Scott, saying that Travis Scott basically is taking his style and stuff like that. And he also dissed Just Blaze for the same reason. He basically said that Just Blaze basically copied his style on that Blueprint album. And I disagree with that. Like, I don't think Just Blaze bit Kanye West. Just Blaze has his own style. He's a different type of producer as far as I'm concerned. He's not biting Kanye West. And I just think that Kanye West, even though it's great to have confidence, I think that in a lot of ways, Kanye West is delusional. Like a lot of ways, he has these delusions of grandeur. Like he's too arrogant. Like he's over the top with his arrogance and stuff like that. He's ridiculous with that. So he's really self-centered in a lot of ways and has this inflated sense of self. Another person that he dissed was JayZ. He basically said JayZ was selfish because he pointed out how JayZ had this song. I can't remember the name of it, but it's this song that went on one of his albums. And JayZ was unwilling to put that song on the Watch the Throne album, like to throw that song and that beat on that album, whereas Kanye West said that he was putting like some of his best songs, onto that Watch the Throne album, songs that he really could have kept to himself and kept on his own solo projects and stuff. And he said that JayZ admitted that he's selfish and all that kind of stuff. Now, while Kanye West dissed all these people, he also complimented, a lot of people, so he had praise for Common as a lyricist. He heaped a lot of praise on Busta Rhymes. As a lyricist, he said that Nas was his favorite rapper. He talked about Mobb Deep being his favorite group. And, he talked about, two of his favorite collective type groups are Wu-Tang and A Tribe Called Quest. And he also had praise for Irv Gotti and Ja Rule. So it's a very great interview, so I encourage people to check it out. Now, one of the things that he said that was controversial was, and I haven't heard many people saying much about this so far, like all on TikTok, they're like, taking little quotes from him and, putting them on different people's TikTok pages. But I haven't heard anybody talking about this. And I've seen a couple of YouTube videos about this particular interview, but I haven't heard anyone talking about the fact that Kanye West said that we need to cancel Black History Month. And he said we need a Black Future Month. He said he talked about how he's tired of seeing Black people hosed down and tired about hearing about the struggle and slavery and all that kind of stuff. And so because of that, he wants to focus on the future instead of the past and all that kind of stuff. And then he also had some comments about Kamala Harris, and I'll talk about that in a second. So with respect to Black History Month, I think that, of course, we should be focused on our future. But a lot of times you can't even focus on your future or prepare for your future if you don't know your past. I don't think we should dwell in victimhood, have a woe is me type of mentality, have a mentality of being helpless and all that kind of stuff. Of course, nobody supports that, but we cannot afford to ignore our history. I think that it's idiotic for Black people to be talking about canceling Black History Month, especially if somebody as ignorant as Kanye West, somebody that's completely ignorant of their history. I mean, this man has said all kinds of ridiculous things, such as, Harriet Tubman didn't free the slaves. This guy said slavery was a choice. Those type of ignorant statements speak to why we still need to have a Black History Month. They speak to the necessity for us having a knowledge of ourselves and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought that was, very problematic that you got this guy talking about we need to cancel Black History Month. I mean, I think that that's ridiculous. And nobody should be surprised by that, that he would make such an ignorant statement. And that's why, somebody like a Talib Kweli, their criticism of him is valid. Their criticism of Kanye West and his antics and his ridiculous statements is valid. Because anybody that knows their history wouldn't make those kind of ridiculous statements. And he's making this statement at a time when you have these right-wing people, these right-wing fanatics trying to get rid of Black history in schools. They're calling it, quote unquote, critical race theory. And a lot of times it's not even critical race theory. They just don't want people to know the truth about American history. They want to gloss over slavery. They want to paint these founding fathers as great people, as flawless, perfect type of idealistic type of people. These same founding fathers that they teach us to cherish owned hundreds of slaves. All you have to do is go to the museum in DC, for instance, and look at the piece on Thomas Jefferson and all the slaves that he owned. Like there's a whole wall with the names of all the human beings that this man owned. While he's writing these great documents about freedom and liberty and stuff like that, he owned Black people, abused Black people, beat Black people, all kinds of, heaped all kinds of oppression on Black people. But they want us to ignore that reality. They want to gloss over hundreds of years of bondage that Black people faced in this country, dealt with in this country. They want to gloss over all the human rights and civil rights violations that this country has committed against Black people. So it's very important that we preserve our history. And the last thing we need is somebody with the bully pulpit like a Kanye West to be spewing this nonsense about the need to cancel Black History Month at the same time when Black history is under attack in this country. So they just want to gloss over all that history. And, we can't afford to do that. If we're to have a future, we need to know where we came from. We need to know about our history and stuff. No one should live in the past, but we should honor the past and learn from the past, just like all other great people do in this country. You don't hear any Jewish people talking about we need to forget about the Holocaust. They say never again. And they make sure that the world knows about the Holocaust, that the world is educated about the Holocaust. We have a Holocaust museum in DC, talking about the history of the Holocaust. There's a Holocaust memorial here in Baltimore, even though the Holocaust did not happen in America, but they recognize the importance of their history. They recognize it as a lesson for humanity, and that's the same thing that we need to do. It's just a shame that somebody like this can be so, they, as somebody else said about another celebrity, it's like they're so loud, but they're so wrong. They have such a huge audience, but the things that they're saying are so wrong and so off. But it gets a lot of attention. And I think that this is part of the reason why, Kanye West has a even larger fan base is because of these ridiculous type of antics. I'm sure that there are white people that kind of stuff resonates with, just like him running around wearing that red hat. And I'm going to get into that in a second. So the next thing he talked about was Kamala Harris. He was basically suggesting that she used the black vote, pimped the black vote, and then was gone from the community, and we haven't heard from her since, and all that kind of stuff. I think that there are some points about like the Democratic Party not doing enough for the black community, and they're valid points, and it's up to us to hold them accountable for for their action. It's up to us to press our agenda and make sure that our agenda and our issues are being implemented. But in a lot of ways, the Biden administration has taken some action. They're taking a lot of action with respect to the voting rights issues. They have filed certain actions to protect voting rights, which is something that's very important to the black community. So that's, one area that I'm aware of that they have already started to address a lot of the issues in our community. And there are others, there's more that can be said, but there's far more that needs to be done. But there is no comparison between what the Biden administration is doing compared to what Trump has done to black people and what Trump represents. And I could go on and on about Trump and his racism, about his coddling and pandering to white supremacists and all that kind of stuff. But yet and still, you got this Kanye West buffoon having all this venom, all this negative energy that he directs towards Democrats, but he doesn't have half of that energy, direct any of that energy towards the racism, the blatant, undeniable racism that exists in the Republican Party that comes from the mouth of a Donald Trump. In fact, this man has praise for these people. He talked about how he still wears that red hat, that Make America Great Again hat. And that just speaks to his profound ignorance of politics. Some people can be great in some things and just be completely off in other areas. So those are some of the things that I just wanted to highlight from this particular interview. It's a very interesting and thought-provoking interview, and I encourage people to check it out. So with that, I'm going to check your comments real quick before I go. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Shout out to Jacksonville. Shout out to Def Rocker. Shout out to Elaine Lloyd. Thanks for tuning in. And thank you, Elaine, for your donation. I see that you made a donation to the channel. I appreciate it. Yeah, so Elaine said, did Kanye seem lucid, stable? I don't know, mentally okay. For the most part, he did seem to be stable. he did seem to be stable and everything. But he said some things that were kind of off. Like he kept saying during the interview that they're gonna want to kill him after he does this interview. Something like how he may get killed after doing the interview. And he said that quite a few times. And that reminded me of his rant that he did against JayZ. He was at some concert, at one of his shows, and he was basically saying, don't have your shooters kill me and stuff like that. Like paranoia, and that's a sign of mental illness. So he was expressing some paranoid type of views during this interview. Uh, but he was lucid, and he wasn't rambling. Like he did make sense. Like he didn't seem crazy doing that interview. He had that crazy haircut though. That's another thing. That haircut that he had where he had patches of his hair missing and all that kind of stuff. He must have did that interview like right after, he took those photos on social media with that crazy hairstyle and stuff. Because he had that same hairstyle during the interview. So I do think that he suffers from mental issues and stuff like that. And I think he's acknowledged that he's bipolar and stuff. But he was lucid and he did make sense. He said a lot of things that were inspirational as well and stuff. Like, he did talk about how Black people are great, how, he mentioned during his rant about Black history, he was talking about they want to remind us of who they want us to be and not who we really are. And I guess that's when people are bombarded with just images of Black people as slaves and all that kind of stuff, that promotes just a negative type of image of Black people instead of showing our greatness and our potential. And I think that is a valid, one valid point that he made about Black history. Too often the history begins when we were slaves, like here. Like a lot of times, a lot of the history that we talk about is just our history in America. It doesn't, often go into depth about our history before we came to America. We don't learn enough about the great African kingdoms and empires and all that kind of stuff, about Black kings and queens and stuff like that. We don't learn enough about that, about Black inventors, Black scientists. Those are areas that we need to emphasize more. Too often, the history that we emphasize is the history of trauma, the history of oppression. And I think that history is very important, but we also need to know about the history of our accomplishments, the history of our greatness as a people, our achievements as a people, before and after slavery. We need to cover all of our history. And that's something that's neglected. And it's something that I was thinking about. Like I put up a post on Facebook and I was talking about like how we have all these movies and television shows about white kings and queens, about white royalty. Where are the movies? Where are the TV shows about Black kings and queens and Black royalty and Black success and all that kind of stuff? Where's a Black equivalent of a Game of Thrones or Vikings or all these other countless shows like about queens and kings and stuff? Where are our kings? While we don't have shows about Black kings and queens, we have plenty of shows about Black drug dealers. And I watch that stuff too. Like I'm not going to say that I don't watch things like that too, but I think that that's one aspect of the Black experience. That's a tiny part of the Black experience. Our experience is far more comprehensive than just street life, hood life, and selling drugs and gangs and all that stuff. We're more than that. We're bigger than that. And that story is not being told enough in the media or in Hollywood. For instance, in Hollywood, you will have plenty of stories about white gangsters, but you also have other stories about white people and what they do and all that kind of stuff. So you have a diverse pool to choose from when it comes to entertainment from white people about white people. But when it comes to black people, it's more limited. And because of that, it perpetuates a lot of negative stereotypes about black people. For instance, you got one network that has like 3 shows on it about black people selling and using drugs and killing each other, but not a single show on that network about black royalty, about positive images of black family. But they give this guy 50 Cent all this money and resources to perpetuate, a lot of negative images. And again, like, there's nothing, like, if you have balance, then it would be okay to just to have a couple of TV shows or movies about the hood life and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me finish going through your comments. And again, thank you, Elaine, for your donation to the channel. I appreciate it. Shout out to AC Talk Radio, AC Star Talk Radio. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, it is hard to take Kanye West seriously. I agree with you on that, Elaine. Like, it is hard to take a lot of things that he says seriously. Like, I find it real interesting when he goes into all this stuff about like comparing himself to Steve Jobs and Walt Disney and stuff. And I think that part of that is about like the law of attraction, like, seeing yourself in a certain light, seeing yourself achieving certain levels of success and making that manifest first by seeing it and thinking about it, and making it into a reality. And I think in a lot of times, like Kanye West, like his success speaks to the fact that he's making things manifest, and that is great. That's a source of inspiration. That's one of the things that inspired me. But when this guy starts talking about some politics and all that kind of stuff, that's when he loses me, because a lot of the stuff that he's saying about politics or about Black history is just way off and just ridiculous. So yeah, when it comes to those things, it's hard to take them seriously. But when it comes to music, when it comes to like entrepreneurship and all those types of things, I listen to what he says, because I think that he does, like, despite his flaws, I do recognize some great aspects about him, like his belief in himself, his confidence. Like, I don't support arrogant, people being arrogant or anything like that, but I do respect people that are self-confident, and I think that that's motivational. So let's see. Yeah, he did mention that, Damba. Yeah, I remember him mentioning, the whole thing about the publicist is a hater on the low, and the nanny and all that kind of stuff, and him not wanting them around his kids. That's one thing that he talked about. Like, he talked about his marriage. He was saying that he's still married to Kim Kardashian, despite all this press about her filing for divorce and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think, I just think he was wrong about Big Sean being the biggest mistake that he made. Like, I think he was just saying that to hurt Big Sean or to take shots at him simply because Big Sean didn't support his candidacy. I don't think it has anything to do, again, like I said before, with him being as an artist. No, I didn't hear about that Travis Scott show. Def Rocker, you could message me or tell me a little bit about that. I'm really interested in hearing about that. Yeah, so with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings, everyone. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Also, tell me what you thought about the interview. Tell me your thoughts about it. Tell me what topics I should have highlighted during this particular live stream that I missed. So with that, peace and blessings. I see that somebody said that there was a stampede at the show. Okay. Okay, I don't know much about that. But yeah, with that, peace and blessings. Have a great day.